Hi viewers, you know that song, don't you? We sing or hear it played at all national and African political occasions, the anthem of the African Union. Today in program 4 in our 5-part history series from NAMCOL, we are talking about the father of the AU, the founding organization that was known as the Organization of African Unity. We'll talk about the composition of the OAU, when it was established, the OAU's objectives, its weaknesses, achievements, and its current status. Thanks for watching and learning with us. You have chosen the right school. Do you know why the Organization of African Unity was established?
I'm afraid not. I don't.
No, I don't know anything about it.
Do you know the difference between OAU and AU?
I know the AU stands for African Union, but I don't know about other.
If I can recall, OAU is Organization of African Unity and AU is African Unity, is it?
That's correct.
Okay.
Do you know any part of the AU anthem?
Yeah, I think I can sing the first few words.
Do that for us, please.
Yes. Let's all unite and celebrate together. That's the only part that I know, yeah.
I'm not good at singing, but I can try. Let us all unite and... sorry, man. I only know the first part.
Please continue.
Don't know. Let us all unite and I don't know what's the second one.
Fine.
Okay.
Celebrate together.
Celebrate together. Yeah, there I got you.
Well, we will not blame anyone who doesn't know about the song or the objectives of the OAU. This little survey was just for fun, to see how politically aware our people are. We will tell you all you need to know about the OAU and its successor, the AU, in this program. The Organization of African Unity was established 51 years ago this year in 1963 in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. It was an organization of African nations that came together for the broad purpose of coordinating policy and promoting unity among the peoples of Africa. When it was established, 32 signatory governments became part of it. Quite good, don't you think? Considering this was still colonial times in Africa at the time. As African countries began achieving independence in the late 1960s, a number of these states expressed a growing desire for more unity within the continent. Not everyone agreed on how this unity could be achieved. Should there be a federation of all African countries as suggested by Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana? Or should the unity be achieved more gradually through economic cooperation as suggested by Léopold Senghor of Senegal and the former French colonies? After several failed efforts to reach an agreement on how to go about unifying Africa, Ethiopian Emperor Haile Selassie I invited the two opposing groups to Addis Ababa for talks. It worked, and that is where the OAU and its headquarters were then established. The Charter of the Organization of African Unity was signed with the following stated objectives: to promote unity and solidarity among African states, and to act as a collective voice for the African continent. This was important in order to secure Africa's long-term economic and political future. To coordinate and strengthen cooperation of African states to achieve a better life for the people of Africa. To defend the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and independence of African states. To eradicate all forms of colonialism and white minority rule. At the time when the OAU was established, there were several states that had not yet won their independence, such as Angola, or where white minority ruled, such as South Africa. The OAU proposed to help pursue independence for countries that were still colonized. To ensure that all Africans enjoy human rights, to settle arguments and disputes between members not through fighting, but rather peacefully and through diplomatic negotiation. We have seen that deep divisions exist within the OAU from the start. Unfortunately, the problems did not go away but continued throughout. Members scoffed at the organization, saying it was bureaucratic talking shop with little power. In its 39 years of existence, critics argued that the OAU did little to protect the rights and liberties of African citizens from their own political leaders. Let's look at what were considered the weaknesses of the organization. The OAU struggled to enforce its decisions, and because it did not have any armed force, it could not intervene to settle disputes. Civil wars in Nigeria and Angola continued unabatedly for years, and the OAU could do nothing to stop them. The policy of non-interference in the affairs of member states also limited the effectiveness of the OAU, so that when human rights were violated, as in Uganda under Idi Amin in the 1970s, the OAU was powerless to stop them. Former French colonies formed a faction on their own, and there was a further split between those that supported the USA and those that supported the USSR during the Cold War. Because of these divisions, it was difficult for the OAU to take action against states involved in internal conflicts, and it could rarely reach an agreement on what to do. It wasn't all bad, though. The OAU had successes in at least some respects. Many of the OAU members were also members of the United Nations, and they stood together during UN debates to safeguard African interests. For example, they stood united against colonialism. The organization was praised by former United Nations Secretary General Kofi Annan for bringing Africans together. The OAU played a pivotal role in eradicating colonialism and white minority rule in Africa by providing rebel groups fighting them, and with weapons, training, and logistics. African harbors were closed to the South African government, and South African aircraft were banned from flying over the rest of the continent during the apartheid era. The OAU also convinced the UN to expel South Africa from bodies such as the World Health Organization to harm them politically. The OAU further worked with the UN to ease African refugee problems, and it is set up by the African Development Bank for economic projects intended to make Africa financially stronger. In the end, just one of the 54 African states was not a member of the OAU. It was Morocco, which left late in 1984. But on the whole, the continued internal divisions killed the efforts of the OAU to work together in unity. The Organization of African Unity was disbanded in 2002 by its last chairperson, South African President Thabo Mbeki. In its place came the African Union, AU. In general, the African Union objectives were the same as those of its predecessor with regard to achieving greater unity and solidarity between African countries and their peoples, defending the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and independence of member states, speeding up the political and socio-economic integration of the continent, promoting and defending African common positions on the issues of interest to the continent and its peoples, encouraging international cooperation such as human rights issues. In some ways, though, the AU's objectives were different and broader than those of the OAU before it. It now has an armed peacekeeping force, and AU troops were deployed in Sudan for peacekeeping in the Darfur conflict as well as in Somalia. We can look at the list of treaties and protocols that have been ratified by members. According to the AU Constitutive Act, the AU is now working to improve continent-wide prevention and combating of terrorism, protection of the rights and welfare of children, protection of human and people's rights, establishment of an African nuclear weapons-free zone, cooperation on African maritime transport and civil aviation, postal and telecommunications services, technical cooperation, fertilizer development, trade promotion, conventions on the elimination of mercenarism in Africa, and for conservation of nature and natural resources. On the screen, you can see the names of the current 54 members of the African Union. Still, only Morocco is missing. And to show you that the AU has grown teeth, 3 members are suspended from the union at the moment. They are Guinea-Bissau because of a coup in 2012, Central African Republic because of conflict starting in 2012, Egypt because of last year's Egyptian revolution. Viewers, the vision of the African Union is for an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa. Twice a year, the Assembly of the African Union meets to make decisions that affect us all. So it is in our interest to keep ourselves informed about what happens when this organization meets and to participate in the decision-making process when we are given opportunities to do so. Let's briefly summarize today's lesson on the OAU. The Organization of African Unity was established in 1963 to promote solidarity among African states. It was to be a collective voice for the African continent. African states were to cooperate for the achievement of better living standards and to defend the human rights, self-rule, territorial integrity, and independence of African states. The OAU fought for the eradication of all forms of colonialism and white minority rule, and the peaceful settlement of arguments and disputes between OAU members. In reality, the OAU was unable to enforce its decisions and could not intervene to settle disputes without armed forces. So it was unable to stop civil wars in Nigeria and Angola and to address human rights violations in member states such as Libya and Sudan. Continued factions and splits in the OAU prevented unity. However, notable achievements included that members were united in UN debates on African issues. The OAU played a key role in eradicating colonialism and white minority rule in Africa, and could get economic sanctions instituted against South Africa during the apartheid regime. It helped ease African refugee problems. It gave economic assistance to Africans. The Organization of African Unity was disbanded in 2002 and immediately replaced by the African Union with an armed peacekeeping force and extensive powers and support to make decisions. I hope you enjoyed watching and learning with us again. Before we go, our SMS competition question for today. Please SMS us at 5003 and mention the keyword for this lesson, which is OAU. Then leave a space and type A, B, or C for the answer you choose as correct. Each SMS costs $3 Namibian. Here is the question. Tell us which statement from these 3 options you think is wrong. The Organization for African Unity, A, was established in 1963, B, wrote its constitution in 1984, or C, was disbanded in 2002. The winner will be announced within 3 days, and if it is you, we will contact you to come and collect your prize at a NAMCOL center near where you live. Thanks again for watching. We have one last program in the series. See you next time. Bye.